Welcome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Scopism Siam Community Ask the Experts live. And my apologies for tripping over the first hurdle and not coming off mute straight away. My name is Paul Drayton. I'm hosting the session today, and I'm joined by these awesome experts. It's great. So we'll go around quick intros. So my name's Paul. I've been working in enterprise service management now for quite a long time, 15, 20 years. I'm currently at Capgemini working as an enterprise services manager and generally involved in pre-sales and putting together SIAM and ESM and ITSM solutions and operating models for customers. Previous to that, I was at Atos doing pretty much the same thing. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'll ask Taryn, if you'd mind introducing yourself, please.
Yeah, excellent. First of all, great to be in the session again after a long time. So I'm Tarun Gupta. Managed SIAM for a pretty long time in HCL, and now working on the customer success side, doing the whole transformation on the value realization and customer success in a product organization now.
Barry.
Yep, Barry Corliss, the full Sunday best job titles, Director Consulting Expert with CGI. Been in and around IT service management and SIAM for longer than I care to remember, if I'm honest. And currently, what my probably main project is working, designing and implementing target operating model for a large global cosmetics organization, and SIAM author as well of the professional SIAM professional body of knowledge. So I'm glad to be here with our other esteemed experts.
Thanks, Barry. And last but never least, Helen.
Thanks, Paul. Helen Nunn. I'm a SIAM and SMO advisor and director with Unisys, and I'm currently working on pre-sales and roadmap opportunities. And I've been a community advisor, etc., for about 3 years now, and I'm glad to be here. And good to see you back, Taryn.
Yeah. Great, thanks, guys. Good stuff. So look, we've got a few questions that we've kind of we've seen in the community over the past few weeks, and we've kind of had a look at those and lifted them out here. So we're going to start kind of working through those. But by all means, please, at any point, any of the audience want to drop anything in the chat, in the comments for the Q&A, and of course we can keep our eye on those, and we're quite happy to address anything that pops up as well during the live comments. So let's kick this off then. So Helen, you posted something really interesting, as did one of our other members of the community as well, Michelle, around dealing with those ecosystem providers that aren't playing ball, the bad eggs, shall we say. And there was some really good debate around how best to sort of approach these kind of providers. Helen, can you just give us a view on sort of some of the thoughts and topics that you saw around that scenario and dealing with these maybe the players in your ecosystem that aren't quite as collaborative maybe as others?
No, definitely. So I'll briefly summarize what was asked. So Michelle, get my words out. Myself and Michelle asked a couple of questions in Share and Learn. So like you say, my question looked at providers who weren't playing ball and weren't prepared to participate in the ecosystem at all, while Michelle's question was around bad eggs causing issues. So some of the key themes that came out, and I'm only going to cover a few today because we were chatting before this started, and this could be a whole topic, covering the whole session. So the first one was about procurement. So procurement setting the tone. So select for capability and cultural fit and not just for cost alone. And the fact that a lot of the times you might be dealing with legacy providers, which aren't always a good fit for the ecosystem. So you're not always going to go for greenfield. you know, it's very rare to go in and, you know, have a greenfield with a new company that's starting from scratch. You are going to have legacy providers. Another thing that came out in terms of the comments, and it was really well, you know, responded to, was to understand what's been communicated to the provider and also the customer organization. So your strategy should be clear from an early stage. Leadership sponsorships should be visible and clear. And I think Taryn's going to talk a bit about that in a little bit. And timing of when the providers are engaged is also key. So I've seen a lot of times when we're just about to go into a transition and only then do the providers find out that we're going to implement SIAM. And that causes all sorts of questions, unrest, and, you know, pushback behaviours. So it's setting the right expectations up front, and training up the operating model and understand what their role is and that the ways of working. So I think, as I've said, pushbacks often because the messaging's unclear or the value of SIAM's unclear. So friction needs to be unpacked and understand what the real issue is. So engage with a provider and understand their underlying concerns. So it might be an ongoing operational aggravation that's happened before we've even discussed SIAM that's causing the behaviour. So get them to the table and get the right level in the provider organisation to the table, and talk around what their concerns are. And another thing that Taryn and I discussed is not relying on the contract. That's not going to secure the right behaviours, and some providers might not be even prepared, you know, to carry on the discussion if you're bringing the contract out, and they might be prepared to pay penalties rather than be willing to change. And the final point is not all providers are going to fully embrace SIAM. That's a fact of life. So aim for good engagement and not perfection. So there were the key takeaways, Paul, from the debate in Share and Learn. So hopefully I've summarised those to the right level of detail. So Barry, have you got any comments on that?
Barry, go for it.
I think if I've been asked this question once, you know, if I'd got money for every time I'd been asked this question, I'd have about enough to buy a litre of petrol at the moment.
Well, I'm not going to pay you, Barry. I haven't got any money, so.
No, the thing is, what I see is, what they're doing is that with people who aren't playing ball. Well, actually, they are, because very often, you know, you don't start SIAM with brand new contracts. You're really, really lucky if you do. So what they're doing is they're behaving exactly as the contracts encourage them to behave. So if you model rewards tower performance or your local efficiency or risk avoidance or whatever else it happens to be, then, you know, actually they're doing what it says in the it says on the tin. So, you know, let's say you've got an end user provider and they're measured on meeting desk side resolution targets, infrastructure provider, availability, application provider, defect closure, or whatever else it happens to be within their own queue. And you get that classic thing where a user reports the application's slow, it's unusable. And the workplace provider says, well, the laptop's all right, close the task. Infrastructure provider says, yeah, platform's there, we're happy, job's a good one. Application provider says, well, there's no confirmed defects. We need more evidence of what's going on. So rationally, they're all doing everything that they're actually being asked to do. And, you know, they're not being awkward. They're doing what it says on the tin. They're doing what it says in their contract. So they're behaving exactly as they're being encouraged to behave. You can't rewrite contracts mid-term. We all know that's not practical at all. So the real practical move is get people to talk to each other. The conversation, you know, what's the real outcome here? The customer can't do anything, you know, they're not able to work at the moment. You guys have got to, you know, you've got to kind of work together. So getting the, you know, whether it's the governance, you know, a morning prayers or some sort of incident forum, whatever it happens to be, just get them talking to each other. And the reality is that if a provider wants to renew a contract and they want to carry on a contract, they're going to have every reason to actually engage and operate in that ecosystem, and not necessarily have to reach for the contract. So, it's absolutely something that don't necessarily always blame the provider, because they're just doing what they've been asked to. I think that sometimes is really the crux of it.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Barry, and I guess it's one of those occasions where SIAM it has to jump out of the operational mindset of all that we're doing, just like you're describing, and then we have to. This is when the SIAM then really becomes into play, and the value of that softer view of collaborating, like you say, getting daily stand-ups, get together, let's talk, what's going on, the customer isn't happy, guys, we need to do something about this, there's no blame here, we understand you're operating to the KPIs that we've set you, but it still ain't working, and that's when it gets challenging. And I think, Taryn, you've got some you're going to give us a view here. So what kind of tools, what kind of sort of how can we best equip ourselves as SIAM practitioners to go into these situations where it's challenging, it's conflict, and sort of calm everybody down and move forward?
Yeah. So it's some, interesting conversations, right? Now, what I learned during my stint with SIAM, right, and long ago when I started working on SIAM, first thing I realized was it needed a lot of personality change and interpersonal skills. We may be good in processes, right, ITIL practices, right, collaboration, all, but some fundamentals, right? If you have to bring everyone together to follow principles, but if you yourself are not good, where people look up to you as a person, right, who is treated with respect, who is very good in processes, who follow the practices, then it's very difficult to bring suppliers together in those conversations. Second is in terms of collaboration as well. When you see these challenging situations wherein everyone has a point of view, how do you drive some of those discussions in terms of being able to hear, listen, right, and acknowledge, right, because everyone has a right point of view based upon their experience, based upon their own pressures of meeting SLAs, right, their own contracts, right. So it's not easy. Now, whoever has worked with me during my SIAM stint, I used to tell everyone very openly during my interview that it's not an easy job. So white people would always want to hear, that it's a good job. I used to tell that it's a very challenging job. Are you ready for it? Because when you would start to work on SIAM, you would notice a shift in your own personality after 1 year, right? And there are a few things. In fact, I've put down a picture there. I just created a sample picture. I don't know if that's visible or not in the chat. But so we have to imagine almost like a movie, right? Because when you have to play a role, right? So you may be whatever you are as a person, but when you are doing a SIAM role, sometimes you have to act like a lawyer, based upon facts. You have to defend or position certain things. Sometimes you have to act like a foreign minister, ensuring that two different countries join together, work very better in terms of setting up policies, right? Sometimes you have to act like a trainer. Okay? I just created a random picture, right? That if I have to tell someone that you have to do SIAM, what would you do? Right?
Awesome.
So you have to, so you have to also understand your own personality, where you have to upskill, and then you also have to understand that you would be only dealing with people maximum times and data. So I think the first thing which I tell everyone is learn how to deal with people, right? And then most importantly, how confidently you present yourself as someone who can act and drive everyone in a positive direction. Because if you yourself are not confident as a SIAM, if you do not have a leadership skill, and it does not mean you are a manager or a SIAM leader. Every SIAM person needs to have leadership and organization change management skills.
Yeah, it's great. I love what you've done here, Taryn. This is like it's good,
No, it's
and
great.
it's a great way, but it's a great way of kind of visually representing exactly what you're describing, is that you've got to take on a role, you've got to have that kind of well, fundamentally you've got to just have that view of wanting to solve a problem for the customer, to get people to talk and to collaborate, and I know it's so much easier said than done. I get that. I think that the challenge of SIAM, as we all know, is that bit of the job. It is that kind of getting the dream team of the ecosystem working together. What, just to kind of throw the question back out there again, what if you've come to the end of you've come to the end of the road with the supplier, and it gets to the point, how best do you then approach sort of like the removal of a supplier, fitting sort of then swapping out for another supplier into the ecosystem, and how do you kind of, and I know I'm kind of asking this off the cuff here, guys, I appreciate that, what the lessons learned, and how do you move forward? Helen, Barry, Tara, have anyone got a view on how best to kind of remove the bad egg, but then learn and sort of move forward with the next supplier and don't fall into the same trap?
Yeah, the smartest one for me is to do everything you can to mitigate the situation and let it come to a natural end. Now, if you've got a 3-year contract and it rears its head 6 months in, it's not going to be brilliant. But if you're 6 months away from the end of a contract, it might be a different story. But mitigation wise, when you're looking at that sort of thing, I think there's probably 3 things that to get it there is making sure that you've got clarity on what good looks like. That's behaviors, that's outcomes. So there's no interpretation of that. So even if it's not contractual, you've kind of got a charter that everybody's signed up to at the start about the way we're going to work together, because the contracts are typically not going to be aligned when you put SIAM in place. So you've got to have something that you can work to. And actually, if the collaboration, the behaviors, the outcomes, the outcome focus, the end-to-end focus is 50% better 6 months after you do that than it was before, then you're going to take that as a result every day of the week. Mm-hmm. When you're approaching the providers, I think one of the key things is evidence, and making sure that you've got that absolute evidence. It's kind of, when something's gone wrong, it's not conjecture, it's not blame. You're working to facts. And then probably the key one above that is, if you're going to have those behaviors, those outcomes, those expectations, those facts, you're making it fact-based, you're looking at it end to end. You've got absolute visible leadership support from escalation, because the last thing you need is to try to do that at the operational and tactical level, and then it almost gets turned back on you from the strategic level. So that visible leadership support all the way through escalation to try and mitigate some of these, and then typically let contracts come to an acceptable end. Because what you don't want is something really, really acrimonious in the middle of a contract, because you've right or wrong, you've still got a business to run. So that would be my advice: let it come to a natural end, but mitigate.
Totally agree. But I mean, I've seen where people have been really resistant in the beginning, and over time they've come round. But over time might be a year. But I suppose before you decide on that exit, give them a chance. Yeah. It might, we have to reinforce over and over again, and sometimes eventually they'll come and they'll play ball, so to speak. So not everybody's going to come around from the beginning.
No, that's a fair point, and I'm kind of wondering as well. Sort of, I'm just thinking back to my experience of this, and when I was at when I was at Atos, and we used to describe what we did as creating an environment for success. It was a way of sort of wrapping everything in a bow, and putting in the governance and the mechanisms and the tooling and everything that was required to make that happen, make it an environment for success. And I think Yeah, I think you know, from my point of view is you know, you can only put, I guess you can only persevere enough, Barry, with a supplier. But I get what you're saying. You've still got that runway of a contract that you've just got to let this work, but then you might get the friction from other suppliers saying, hang on a minute, you know, why are we still going with this one particular supplier because of this reason? But I think you're right. I think in the long term, if you let it come to a natural end, make sure then, because then you need to set up all of your sourcing and your procurement again to get that up and running to fill the gap when you're going to release the provider. So I get that, and it's challenging. And like you say, it's a great topic, and I think we could just talk about this all day. But I'm just going to move. I'm going to move us on as and I'm just going to bring this now to kind of like a training angle. And Helen, I know you've been doing as have others some kind of work in the background on this, and you know, how does like equipping ourselves with the right sort of skills and capabilities, and what Taryn was showing us with his multi-personas and everything, how does that link back then to sort of, you know, training and what's available for people to upskill, if you like, in this area?
So there's a couple of things we're about to launch in the next few weeks. So the Skills Compendium came out in November, but we've just recently done a recording. We're talking about some of the key skills and themes. So we're talking about the fact that skills aren't static, they require continuous development. And I know Taryn's got some strong opinions on that. And it was also interesting to hear Karen Ferris yesterday saying around unlearning. So that's another really good thing to listen to, that you've got to be open to change. And that's part of the integration leadership series. But one of the key messages that as part of the skills compendium recording is the biggest barrier to transformation is the skills gap. So it's recognizing that you might have a skills gap, and you know, often people try and go out to the market rather than assess what they've got and understand where the skills are internally and where they need to develop. So, and there's an increasing importance here around orchestration, around governance, and around human capability. So again, like Tara mentioned, around leadership and adaptability, but also around collaboration. So before I talk about Astrid, I don't know, Taryn, do you want to chat a bit more about some of that?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So few things, you know, whenever a new SIAM function is set up, or we onboard a new supplier, or even team members, I think one of the principles which still applies any SIAM engagement is the group theory, because whenever you set up new teams, they're always going to have confrontation, resistance, right? Because they take time to know each other. And that is where a role of a SIAM person comes very critical, that do you have ways and means to bring people together? For example, you know, Friday coffee sessions across suppliers, right? People could have common hobbies, right? There are a lot of ways where you can bring people together. Another thing is, there's a very beautiful book called Managing Up and Across from Harvard. It teaches, you know, that while you manage your boss's expectation, you also have to start managing your colleagues' expectation. So what I'm trying to explain is that book kind of, you know, you expand it to the supplier environment as well, because you have to treat everyone equal. But it teaches you how to manage, you know, our complex teams, you know, how to deal with the expectation of the leadership, but also, you know, bringing allies and more people together for a common cause. So two of these things, plus I believe learning org change management is one of the most critical things. And learning as well as practicing it, no one would really, you know, step back if you tell them that this is something which helps everyone, you know, align together. So a lot of things people can do, you know, at least by picking up these 2 or 3 basic learnings.
Yeah, it's as though it's funny.
I'm liking Taryn there. Sorry guys. Yeah, I'm liking there, Taryn, what you're saying about bringing people together, and that the next step, something that a couple of years ago I did with one of our clients. Very very safety critical industry and an organization. And they felt that collaboration in major incidents between various providers, and it wasn't a sort of single data center. It's technology all over the country in the UK, and bringing them together for an afternoon and just running a simulation in a non-pressured environment, just to get people who normally only talk to each other when P1s are on major incident bridges and stuff like that, to actually talk to each other in a in a less confrontational and less high pressure environment. It's your coffee mornings, Taryn, that you've just mentioned, to just get them together, talking, the understanding, the level of trust. It all makes a difference. The more that they can talk in a kind of non-threatening, non-critical environment, the better they work together in when the environment does become critical, because there's that understanding, there's that level of trust, there's that, we're not always going to reach for the process. We need to go that extra mile. We're doing it for someone who's a friend, not for somebody who's an enemy or another thing. So getting people together in that way, and that type of non-threat to practice these things makes such a difference. I've always found that, particularly in these days where we're all on meetings like this, to actually get people together in a room makes a huge difference. We're still human. We still like that bit of contact. We still like to share a coffee and so on.
That's
Yeah,
very good point.
absolutely. Yeah. Helen?
No, so I'll quickly talk about Astrid, if that's okay. So
Please do.
Barry and myself been working on it over the past year. So hopefully it's going to be launched very soon, fingers crossed. So for those who aren't familiar with Astrid, it's an online skills and assessment platform. And what we've done over the past year is introduce some new SIAM roles and capabilities into the platform, and we've flavoured 3 of the existing roles. So what Astrid does is allows users to assess themselves against roles and competences. It provides insights in terms of what your strengths are, your gaps, and your development path. So then it suggests some relevant learning and certification. So it's a good baseline to understand where you are at the moment and what your skills are and where you potentially need to bridge a gap. So hopefully, like I say, that's going to be launched fairly soon. So
Yeah, I
we've
like.
tested it and we've got a roadmap. So don't expect perfection when it's launched. We are going to introduce a few more roles in the next, year or so.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And I think that's really important. And it's like, from what you're sort of putting into context there, is, a skills assessment, some real resources to take a look at, and to help with kind of maybe upskilling and filling some of those gaps, which are kind of like going back to what Barry was saying, which is like it's trying to explain to customers and clients that SIAM isn't just kind of like a fancy ITIL that you do end to end through other suppliers. It's not. Explaining, the I guess for me, the more important aspects of the collaborative governance, the openness, the way that you've got to bring these people together. We come from a kind of, I guess, an ITSM, a technical kind of world, but ultimately SIAM, it's people, and it's about behavior, and it's about treating everybody as you treat people out, almost like outside of work. When you step into your provider ecosystem, bring people together, find commonality, find something that these guys are kind of doing in common. Throw them sort of like assistance around. Look, the customer's trying to run a proof of concept in this, or they've got that. This is an issue for them. What do you think? Bring them in. Have joint innovation forums. Bring people together. And again, I know it's easy to say, and the challenges of having competitors in a room. But if you set the right framework and you build the right environment and say, look, you know, tools down here, guys, let's just come together. What do you think? Because ultimately what you're doing is giving them opportunity to maybe increase their scope and increase business. You know, it all, at the end of the day, you know, the more you can show collaboration, or as a facilitator, as the SIAM, that you're ticking the box, you're doing your service well. The more you come together as a provider and show collaboration, you're ticking the box. I might get more business out of this, and all good, you know. So yeah, it's good. I like it. I think it's the right thing. You know, it's more than just the ITSM and the process. Is a hell of a lot more than that. So all good, guys. All good stuff. All good stuff. Right, how are we doing? We're doing well. We've got, so one of the other questions that we got, or I say questions, or sort of subjects here, was we wanted to just to kind of reflect back that we've got this this amazing Women in SIAM series that's running kind of through this year in the community, and there's been some incredible calls that we've had already. And Taryn, I think we wanted just to kind of put a bit of a teaser out there, because you and I are going to be doing something in the future to talk around what it is to show allyship and to bring ally toolkits to the table, and to support you know, and to sort of, you know, be alongside all the amazing women that we have around us. Taryn, did you want to just sort of give us a bit of a teaser and some like a little view into that for what we're going to be doing in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing you've all noticed is there's an increase in women picking up SIAM roles over the last few years, and over I think I've also seen, you know, they've been very successful when it comes to managing, especially the strategic and leadership roles, and you know, bringing suppliers together. So we've had some, you know, great success in setting up some of these teams in the past, and I think Paul, what we discussed, you know, more on those lines, that how do we bring those experiences so that, you know, we can motivate and give inspiration to a lot of other people who are women, in fact, especially, that, you know, how they can achieve more success, right, and move forward in these roles. So I'm planning to actually, you know, bring some successful women in SIAM in the future sessions. So we'll discuss further on that, you know, and how do we run those sessions together.
Fantastic, Taryn. Thanks so much. Yeah, that all good stuff. Right, we've got a question here. Here we go. Look, we'll love this. We'll love it when there's a live question come in, because it keeps us on our toes. And we here we go. So listen. So Maya's put a great question. It's a great question. I'm just going to read it out, guys. Here we go. So as we evaluate the implementation of SIAM, several dimensions such as performance, outcome oriented, of course, contract scope, and financial considerations, the budget, need to be addressed. How can we work on these areas in parallel without disrupting existing operations? So you've got all the lenses there, aren't you? You've got the performance management, contract management, financial, you know, considerations. How do you work on all of this at the same time and bring it all together, but don't disrupt existing operations, guys? I'm throwing it out. Who wants to come off mute?
Go on, I'll have a crack at this one first. I think it's a brilliant question, because, you know, I mean, I guess the obvious thing is we've always got to protect live service. Yeah, that comes before anything else in any organization. So we've got to make sure that we actually separate the design from that live service, in terms of you know, so that we're not designing this on the fly. Now, I think the way to work on these things in parallel is actually to, one of the things I'm doing in the current implementation that I'm working on is we're starting with an MVP. Effectively, it's just a minimum viable kind of start to SIAM, and the key to it is getting people talking at an operational, a tactical, and a strategic level. Very lightweight governance forums to start. You know, the onboarding, the first couple of forums are going to be about learning, about to each other, about getting used to what decisions we're going to have to make, where the boundaries of those decisions are going to be. So it's very much, there's that old idea, isn't there, about the implementation. Rather than throwing the rock into the water and having the ripples, you're just sliding the stone into the water, and hopefully, you just get, you don't get great big waves that you can surf on. You get the little ripples. So I think the key is, again, getting people talking to each, getting that common understanding, bringing the different parties together as soon as you possibly can. Not necessarily as well bringing them all together, that you bring some suppliers into the into the site before others, that you don't try to do too much, because what you've got out of there, Maya, is that you might well, if you try to do everything at once, you've got people wondering about, well, how are they going to be rewarded financially as their organization if they suddenly have to start doing things? Hang on, our contract scope's changing. The performance now, we're responsible for stuff we weren't responsible before. We've got to cooperate with this, and all these things we've got to do different, and that get panic. So you're trying to do too much at once is also incredibly. So the advice, again, get people talking, get some of those governance forums, your daily stand-ups, just get them going, because making decisions, huge decisions, other than let's escalate that, let's do this, let's do that. It's not making huge decisions, but it's getting people talking. It's testing some of the boundaries, and it's starting to get you up and running without endangering that live service. That's got to be paramount.
Totally agree, Barry. And that's the approach I take as well on MVP. You're not going to get a full-blown SIAM in an implementation within like 3-4 months. It is that gradual, introduction, so you don't disrupt the live service. So, and absolutely, get that basic governance in, but accept the governance as well is going to have to grow and mature over time as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, Taryn, any thoughts on Maya's awesome question?
Yeah, so one interesting thing on the same lines, a smart SIAM consulting or implementation team would always know which battle to pick up first. When I say battle, not in terms of fighting, but more of, what is the biggest pain point where you do the minimal work and it shows the maximum improvement.
Yeah.
Because that gives, positivity, confidence to everyone across the ecosystem. And you have to look at, because it is also about winning the confidence of the supplier leadership, right, and the customer leadership. So the question is, what are those few problems which are priority one as part of your plan, right, which you want to tackle in the beginning itself, show some success wherein everyone starts to believe, and then slowly, as Barry and Helen were saying, right, you start to bring in the other changes over a period of time and start to bring champions. So don't fight it alone. You need to have champions within your own team, supply team, who work along with you, who can kind of spread the message across the other functions as well.
Yeah, I like that,
Yeah,
Taryn.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And also OCM that we've talked about as well previously. Yeah. You need to
Yeah.
get OCM on board.
I'd probably add
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
to what you said there, Taryn, as well. It comes from. I'm a great fan of Sun Tzu, The Art of War. If anybody's ever read that, and if you, to be honest, and this was something that there was an old ops director of mine, and he used to say to me, he said, Barry, you pick your battles, don't you? And I said, of course I do. I'm not going to go to war with you if I'm not going to win. Pick a battle that you're going to win as well. I mean, Taryn, you said about those battles. Yeah, pick one you're going to win. That and you start to get that confidence. Hey, get stuff done, don't they? So wherever you've got that, you've got that idea that you're going to win that. 5 suppliers that are absolutely on board with this. Chances are we're going to win this battle. Let's do that first. That makes total sense. to do it that way. It's practical.
Yeah, and I think also, Maya, in your question, you're kind of raising the concept when you're saying, these several dimensions, and how do you work on them in parallel. And I think, don't forget, actually, the ones you've used as an example here are great. So things like performance management, contract management, and financial, they are related. They are, you can work on pockets of process and function together at the same time. You can absolutely do those in parallel as you're putting together your performance management framework. So you're building out, measuring the outcomes, measuring, I don't know, whatever you're using. You might be using SLAs, SLOs, SLIs, in like a DevOps agile space. You might be using just good old-fashioned KPIs and PIs, but certainly you can absolutely work on building out that performance management framework, because it then builds into the contract on how you're going to write it, how you're going to articulate it, how you're going to measure it, how you're going to if you're going to do so, how you apply service credit and service penalty. And then the third point you raise is the financial considerations, and the budget is obviously a massive part of that, and how you want to procure the service, how you want to put that sort of financial management together. So yeah, all good stuff here, guys. And I think you can do all that at the same time. I think, as the guys are saying, classic ITIL, start where you are, sort of thing, MVP, build it out, do what you're going to do best, win the battle, as Barry's saying, go win it first, and then, as we all know, it's then you can scale it. Once you've got that seed and that acorn of something that's been a success, you've got your champions, you've won your battle, people around you will see that and they'll go, oh, this is working. Let's see what they've done over there. They've built this, and they're starting to build a Cyan. They're starting to get this working. People go, oh, I like that. Maybe we should go and see what they're doing. And it works. And then people say, yeah, this is good. So how did you do that? Well, we did this. Right. I want to bring these suppliers in. Can we bring them into your model? Yeah, of course you can. Come and have a look at what we've done. And off we go, sort of thing. And it gets bigger and bigger. And it's all good. So, yeah, listen, I think I'm getting a little wave here. So we're approaching the end of the time. We've got about a minute, I think, to go here, guys. It's been a great session. I really wanted to say thank you for attending. Thank you for the questions. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I think, I don't think there's any final thoughts or anything from anybody. I think Helen, Barry, Taryn.
Yeah, there's one.
I'll leave you with. Go on, Taryn.
Go on. So I'll keep it quick. So
you've got 30 seconds each.
Yeah, we can learn directly from Steph in terms of ability to bring people together and collaborate, and everyone in the Cyan community knows her.
Okay, great point.
Barry,
I'll leave you with Sun Tzu. Every battle is won or lost before it's even fought.
Wow.
Boom. There you go. Helen, beat that.
I can't beat that. So I'm just going to say bye for now, everybody, and thank you for attending.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.